What is up, you guys, and welcome to Aureus, where we explore the creative arts of the world however we see fit. If you are new here, welcome to the community. We really hope that you're staying safe, being good, and being yourself. And if you're a regular, please do feel right at home. If you're sad, smile up, because we're just all about happiness here. So today is something that I promised in my last video, and I will not go back on my words. Today we'll be doing a phone case for my new phone, of course, and we will be doing this in a format that I personally had fun doing. So this case was basically to symbolize a lot of balance, or a lot of the push and pull of my life for the past couple of years. So it's a big deal, and I really feel that I just wanted to share with you guys on how I particularly did this. So if you're following this as a tutorial, here are all the stuff that you're gonna need. If you're just here for entertainment, do sit back, relax, grab a drink, grab a star as we go through this process of how I got from here to here. Personally like starting off with a clean surface, so I go through the extra mile to literally sanitize my surface. It is something that I guess it's a ritual that I have now. I don't normally share it in all my other videos, however it is something that I like doing, and it is a good practice, especially if you're using spray paint. And you gotta wipe it down, you gotta make sure it's all like, you know, spiffy clean, and well, not that you see a reflection, but just clean to the point that you don't necessarily see dust. You can use a cloth, you can use water, there's no harm. I just prefer using sanitizer because then that also kills the extra naughty germs that are there. Also, if you're making a phone case for somebody else, it is advised for you to do that. The second thing that we're gonna do is prepping the phone case itself. So since I will be using spray paint as my prime, I also need to wipe this down to make sure that there's no dust, to make sure that it's practically clean and that's ready to be primed. And just like my surface, I used hand sanitizer, or you can use water, you can use a wipe, you can use a cloth. You don't even actually need to add water, you can just practically just use a tissue, but you gotta get everywhere. You gotta even get the inside of the phone case so that your phone case is just prepared and is clean all the way through. If your phone case is new, still do this thing. It is a clear phone case, it's coming from a factory, and sure, it's in the seal, but you know, maybe sometimes it stay there for a long period of time, or you know, just the chemicals, that residue that normally stay on top of it once it's already been made, you need to watch out for. The next thing would be roughening the phone case up. Clear phone cases don't normally come matte, so you gotta make it a matte looking phone case. So I achieved this by using sandpaper. You can use a nail file like I did in my last video, nothing stopping you. I just found the sandpaper a lot easier to maneuver from different corners to different places, basically moving it from side to side, and you know, just having it work for you rather than you working for it like the nail file. Not that if you have a nail file it's nothing bad. For the nail file, it's just a lot harder to get into those corners and get on the front side itself, so I would highly recommend that you get like a tiny sheet of sandpaper just like I did. The main goal of sanding it is to make it look as translucent as possible. Don't make it opaque. Opaque will just basically means you've chipped away majority of the material on top of that. You still need some of that material on top, but it needs to be translucent, meaning it needs to be in the barrier of where it is through but not see-through. And that is basically what we're trying to achieve. The next step most probably would be to hide the holes. Most phone cases have holes of where you're supposed to put your charging port and all that stuff. And when you're priming, you really just don't want that stuff inside your phone case. So you just gotta put some tape in there. It can be duct tape, can be masking tape, it can be sellotape. Just so long as you've blocked the holes and it's just, you know, covered up. Now, spray paint is a very tricky thing in terms of like it's easy to deposit somewhere, but it's not very easy to, well, get off. So if you're using spray paint, I would highly recommend that you use gloves. Spray paint is sprayed paint, but then the fumes that are kept in the can when you spray it becomes exposed, and that's not good for your lungs. So I'd suggest that you put on a mask. Now that we have them lying around the house, I'm sure you will find a mask. So for my priming aspect, I kind of had to do it outside because I didn't want to get the fumes inside my room. I painted 3 coats in total, trying to cover every side of it, and then towards the end I kind of did the inside, so that forced me to have to put more tape inside. I didn't take a shot of this, I'm sorry, but I kind of realized I also needed to do like the rim of the foam of it so it didn't just get onto the back. So between each coat, I let the first coat dry for 5 minutes, the second coat dried for 7 minutes, and the third coat dried for 12 minutes, but then I added another 3 minutes, so a total of 15, so that everything could be dry by the time I was moving it from my windowsill to my desk. However, when the 12 minutes have passed, I would suggest you move, like shift the position of the phone case, because if not, the phone case will get stuck to whatever you're using, and that really isn't a good thing. So now that we're waiting for our pan cover to dry, if you've made it this far, please consider subscribing and joining us for our next available videos. Also, shout out to my brother Dean Q32. If you want to have a chance to be shouted out in the next video, you have 2 options. Either you subscribe to my channel and follow me on my socials, or subscribe to my channel and leave a comment down below. But the key thing is you have to subscribe. So now that our case is dried, it's kind of time to look for a reference. So when I went to the internet to look for koi fish, I got bombarded with a lot of options. And I mean a lot of options. I was lost for words on how many stuff I found. But in the end, after scouring and kind of like spending, I think 3 hours, I finally made a decision and chose this photo. And it was a good choice. Now that our phone case has kind of dried up and it's all ready, we can go ahead and measure out the dimensions of the back itself. I had to consider the fact that I was doing koi fish, so I had to enlarge my stencil a little bit more, and instead of doing 1 stencil, I decided to do 3, mainly because of the fact that the koi fish is very detailed yet it's very small and had a very small face to use. So I had to separate the details in 3 different stages and practically assign them accordingly. So for the first stencil, because my cover was white, I decided I was going to make it black, and so I was going to do the black and white fish hollow, and then the white and black fish semi-hollow. I added the eyes, I don't know what these things are called, but I added those 2. I added the circle on the top of the head, and then I added the fins, and I added the fins, kind of cut out the fins. Then I left the body and the head, well, uncut. For the black and white, I basically just cut it hollow, and then I just cut outlines for the fins so that I could know exactly where they are when I was doing the second step. Second stencil, so I decided to do that white, and that meant that the scales of the black and white fish were on the stencil, and the fin details of the white and black fish were on the stencil. So I basically drew what are they, diamonds, misshaped diamonds, and then crisscross them in front of each other and then practically cut them out in a diamondish, distorted diamond shapes, and kind of left little spaces for it to, well, you know, show. On the other side, I basically did the fins, so I cut hollow spaces and then kind of made it look as much rugged as much as I could, and just kind of, you know, made it look like fins. So in this stencil, it was only the scales and the fins that were gonna be there. I also added the eyes for the black and white fish because in the last stencil there wasn't there. So for the third stencil, I decided to switch it up a bit because I didn't want the scales to look exactly the same. So I decided that I was going to do the similar crisscross diamond shape, but instead of cutting the whole entire diamond, I only cut half the diamond out and left the other half covered, so that at least I'd have semi-awkward, you know, triangles instead of diamonds, and I particularly like it. Although I didn't change anything much when it came to the fins, there was not really much I could do, so I just kind of kept the fins standard, but the scales is what I really switched up a little bit. And I also went ahead to draw the rest of the, I honestly don't know what this is. Whiskers? Yes, I think they're whiskers. Anyway, comment down below if you know what these things are called. I would love to know what it's called. That would really be a good lesson to me. But I kind of filled in the whiskers, cut it out, and then I conducted a light test. So now a light test is basically you putting your stencil against the light and having an idea of what is gonna be on the other side of your stencils. You can do what I did, practically put the stencil in front of my window, and my curtains are white so I could be able to see what was inside there. Or you can put your stencil in a dark place and then shine a light from one direction to the other, and then you can just see what comes out of the bottom of the other side of the stencil. But the easiest one would just be hold it up to a light and see what you can see on the other side, like an x-ray. So after the stencils, I practically went back to my setup on the balcony, put on my gloves and my mask again, and I placed my first stencil, which was the black stencils. So for stencils, you can either hold it down with your hand or you can add weights. The best thing to do is have weights, and the best weights to use are hex nuts. They're the best to use when you're putting your weights. When you're buying hex nuts, I suggest you buy the smallest size possible. My hex nuts were too big, so every time I'd put them, they'd literally like stop the spray paint from heading to the other side. But hex nuts are the best way to use as weights. So if you're doing this and you don't want the stress and the mess that I had when I was holding my hands down, using my hand to hold the thing down, hold the stencil down, and ended up having like some blotches here and there, I suggest you get yourself a bag of hex nuts. Maybe like 20 should be sort enough. 20 should be enough for you, and they're only like 3 bob if I'm not wrong. So for the first layer, let it dry for 5 minutes. The second layer, I let it dry for 7 minutes. But then when I put my third layer on top, I messed it up because it hadn't fully dried. So I suggest you do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. So at least it's fully dry and you don't have the same mess I did when it was kind of peeling off from the stencil. So now that our koi fish have dried, I decided I was going to do gold and silver to do highlights. The plan was to use gold on the black and white fish and then use the metallic silver on the white and black fish. But as I started adding the metallic silver to the white and black fish, I kind of realized that you weren't going to be able to see it. So I decided to reserve that for the water that I wanted to draw on the sides and just do the gold entirely on the fishes. For the water, that's when I decided to use the silver. I used the silver as like the base lining of the water itself, and then I used gold as highlights. So basically the cover was white, silver-ish, metallic, gray, and gold mostly. So once I was kind of done with that, I let that dry for a total of an hour. Now, listen to me and listen to me well. If you don't let your acrylic dry, your phone case is going to run away from you once you put your top. 30 minutes, I took my, as Christina from Simply Nailogical will say, glossy taco and put it on top of my phone case, and practically did one stroke at a time. Don't go back for second strokes or your acrylic is going to run. Don't go back and forth, one stroke and then go back. You gotta go one stroke and then go to the next side and do another stroke, and then go to the next, move on to the next and do another stroke. Then when you're doing your second coat, you can go crazy. In between my two coats of clear nail polish for my cover, I let the first one dry for 45 minutes and the last coat to dry for a total of 12 hours. So the first coat dries a lot faster, but once you put the second coat, you gotta wait for it to dry completely, or just like your nails, you're gonna have a dent and it's not gonna look pretty. So of course, to finish it all off, I had to put my logo there. It is a standard thing. And for those guys who don't know, I do phone cases. So if you live in Kenya, don't be afraid to hit me up. If you don't live in Kenya, I'm sorry, I've not figured out how to do the international dispatching yet, so I won't be able to dispatch to anyone outside unless you have a courier service, then fine. So that is my journey throughout the for the past 2 days on how I managed to get from a clear phone case to a yin and yang, black and white and gold and metallic gray case. I hope you guys enjoy this, and if you guys have any other suggestions on what I should do next, do comment down below what you think I should do, what you guys think about the case itself, and don't forget to like and hit that bell so that you don't miss next week's video. See ya.